mentioned that they were before.
I got to keep it full
Good evening, welcome to the Colonial Beach Town Council's work session on Wednesday, August 12th, 2020. This meeting is officially called to order. All members are here. And is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I don't think I need to make a change to the agenda to move the CARES Act. I want to move the CARES Act to discussion and review dedicated funds used from the appropriated fiscal year 2018-2019. You guys okay with that? All right, good. Okay, so with that, we'll get right to business, and we'll have presentations from the Wanderluv grant form. Maggie Lane.
Thank you for allowing me to come talk to you guys about another great grant that the town has been awarded. As you all know, the coronavirus pandemic had a devastating impact on the tourism and hospitality industry across the country. So, well back in late June, we applied for this Wanderluv grant recovery program that offered funds to help spur economic activity and travel across the Commonwealth. So the town of Colonial Beach, along with 90 other destination marketing organizations, were awarded up to $10,000 with no match required. And this is to help integrate this new Virginia Tourism Corporation campaign that's called Wanderluv. So what is Wanderluv? Well, the Virginia Tourism Corporation did some research and found that 40% of Americans intend to take road trips this year since it's a safer alternative that allows for social distancing as opposed to other forms of travel. So Wanderlust is the strong desire to travel, but since Virginia is for lovers, the Virginia Tourism Corporation changed the lust to love, thus creating Wanderluv, which is a strong desire to travel in Virginia. The Wanderluv campaign will provide travel inspiration and itineraries for epic road trips that feature outdoor recreation, hidden gems, small towns, and love works. So I've been working with Susan French, and we basically split the $10,000 into three main categories. The first is obviously marketing. We're going to heavily be posting on all of our social media accounts, along with other paid online advertising opportunities. The second is for additional signage to relay information regarding changes due to the virus. So for examples, whenever we are able to open up the playgrounds, we'll purchase signage for that with this grant. And the last is video production. This grant allowed for us to buy a GoPro, which I've been using to put together another tourism video that I will hopefully have ready by the end of August.
Awesome work.
Thank you.
Once again, you've knocked the ball out of the park. We appreciate all your hard work, and we appreciate the administrative staff and everybody else involved in taking advantage of all these grants, even the ones with the much smaller amounts. But thank you very much for your hard work, whoever was involved in this and all parties involved in it.
Thank you.
Use them up, that's for sure. All right, new business. Draft resolution 30-20 approves a second amendment to a lease agreement between the town of Colonial Beach and the Branch Banking and Trust for the police department. That's the BBT building, where our police department resides, on the top floor, commercial professional offices, and I believe it's a total of 6,700 square feet up there. And I was going to discuss this. We were going to discuss this. We're not going to vote on this tonight. We'll vote on this on the 19th. But I was going to ask the chief, is this property, is this conducive for what you need to continue to do there as a police department? I know the initial lease period, 3 years we had a couple of issues that came up, but has that since been rectified, and are you all comfortable in that building?
Yeah, we finally got the heating, air conditioning, whole thing worked out. This year's been good. Space-wise, it's good, and just so, well, you guys know this, but we have half of the first floor too,
Right.
The entire second floor. Yeah, with that current staffing level, I would say that it's going to be out of it for probably at least the next couple of years.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, hopefully in 3 years we can get you into something permanent that's owned by the town.
That would be good.
That'd be awesome. So,
Yes, sir.
okay, so I'll open this up for discussion if we can. If council have any questions, chief? No. If not, we'll move this. Rob, do you have something?
No, I just wanted to make sure that AC services in section 5 that you've accommodated that and you're good with the way that worked out. And this is an opportunity to.
Yeah, it's an additional cost, and especially for it actually worked out really good last year for Bike Fest, because that's where we have our command post.
Mm-hmm.
And being in October, we just kind of extended it down through the end of the month, so it works out well.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the only question.
Okay. Okay, so now we get to part 2 of the new business, which is discussion to review dedicated funds used for the appropriated fiscal year 2018 through 2019 unspent funds. And with that, followed right directly on it, we'll discuss the CARES Act monies. Lisa.
Okay, thank you. We brought forward $467,807.76 into the fiscal 21 budget. This money was from the savings of unspent funds in our fiscal 19 budget. So far, we have committed to spend these funds on the following items I've listed. Remodeling the bathrooms at Castlewood and Boundary, approximate cost of $25,000. Purchasing the new parking meters, and that's approximately $128,000. There is a stipulation on that understanding if we do have unspent funds in fiscal 20, that we will reimburse the parking of the $60,000 in extra revenue that they had in fiscal 20. The dog park construction, we have an estimate of $30,000. The new playground equipment for Eleanor Park, we've committed $60,000. The GIS mapping, we have that, they're going to be doing that for us. We have a bill for that, $24,855. Police department has purchased their LiDAR units, 2 of them. We do have the bill for that. That's $28.24 for those 2 units. And then we have the cameras at Torrey Smith Park, approximately $14,000, which is on hold right now until we make a decision on opening up the park. So to date, we have spent $284,679, or committed these funds to these projects. And so that leaves us remaining unspent funds of $183,128.76. Anybody have any questions or
Questions for Lisa? Yeah. Okay, now we can move into the questions about that.
They're related.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So first I'll start with the dedicated committed fund list. Both parks are also had nonprofit partnerships that are fundraising for them. And I know I've seen some fundraising for the dog park recently, and so we're committing $30,000 in the funds that they fundraise will supplement for other amenities there. Does that sound, is that the consensus on council?
The $25,000 to $30,000 is a rough estimate. Rob's working right now on the fencing. If we remember for the last year and a half, there's been a lot of efforts with grants for the dog park, et cetera, and then finally council decided in early spring that we just would like to move forward. Then COVID hit, and then we all kind of put the brakes on any type of operation like this. And then council came back and said, yes, we can now move forward. So in order to expedite it and get it done before winter, we're going to go ahead and pursue the fencing with the understanding that there's a whole lot more involved in the dog park that the fundraising that could provide over time.
Okay.
Real quick, while you're on that.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I was gonna go ahead, go with dog park right now. I'll go back to the,
Mr. Mayor, Karen's in the back.
okay. So Karen?
I know it's raised a lot of money for
Oh,
the
yeah.
dog park, so.
I just want to thank the council for moving forward with this and thank Mr. Owen Peary for doing the draft site plan for us. I wanted to ask if that $20,000 to $30,000 estimate included running the water over, or if that was just for the fencing.
Pure fencing. Pure fencing.
So we still have a cost with getting water to the site.
But it's a minimum.
Yes, the $25,000 to $30,000 is just the fencing alone.
Rob, do we have any idea how much that water line and stem pipe is going to cost?
With council's permission, I would say that most of that should be done in-house. So, and that's tapping a water line, which we typically do. You're talking $1,000 for materials, and of course our manpower.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have a amount that you fundraised so far for it, or you don't want to disclose it because you're still working on it?
We don't have a fully thought out plan yet. I will say that Colonial Buzz is donating all their tips this month to the dog park. So go buy a coffee and give a tip.
Thank you. I was gonna go back real quick.
Yeah, that's fine.
On the bathroom remodel, if we move the playground from Castlewood, would we still need a full bathhouse there? Or what would we
I
utilize?
think that's
Definitely,
actually,
because you're still, I mean, that's beach access bathroom for the point.
Okay,
Right,
So
and I
you still
think
need
they're
that
using
bathroom
porta
in
potty
there.
right now down there.
okay.
Right, there's a porta
There's a porta potty
In addition,
down there.
yes.
Yeah.
There's a porta potty down there, and the bathrooms are also open, but
Mm-hmm.
they're locked.
But I know, but we're not, the beach is only open, the beach is only used for 3 months, 4 months a year, is the question I have. Could we use Don John's there?
And
I mean, I
you
know
have a building that if you take away that building,
Yeah.
I mean, you invested in, you have brick and
Yeah.
stone building that you can put in. I mean, porta johns over the years will eventually
Okay,
cost money as to where we can put something into what we already have.
okay, thank you, that's just.
Would be my opinion.
Okay.
My question would be, and I know we've talked about it before, can we jump from to another thing? Is this, I mean, we're spending money on other stuff. Do we still want to hold this on these cameras? I mean, most of this work here is not going to be open when we complete it unless we get these park attendants, which I've worked with
Can I talk
town
about that?
staff.
Yeah.
And there's been feedback from it, but not any reply. So my question would be is, why are we holding on the cameras? I mean, that's a very minimal cost compared to some of the other endeavors.
I'm good with the cameras, but I do want to talk about the attendant
I want to
thing.
talk, I've got a general question on all costs. Can somebody tell me what items here are on the CIP?
I think the meters and items on the CIP have to be over $50,000.
I understand, I'm just asking what items are on the CIP. Two, say number two.
GIS mapping actually used to be on the CIP, but I don't have the CIP in front of me right now.
No, I realize,
The dog park was in the approved in the previous budget or this
Yeah,
budget.
and that actually was, we didn't really know to the extent what we would be having to participate in that, and I don't know, had we really ever anticipated an amount, or is this the first time we've really?
I don't know if you did you have an idea of the new fencing and?
I mean, the fencing I know is actually something that was covered from the storm. That's something we've never done from the storm cost, from way back. But some of it anyhow, I just,
And actually, the playground came in under $50,000
the playground can't come in under $50,000, I'm sure all of it. The other thing is, I guess just in function here, you know, when we have savings, the idea of savings is supposed to go to CIP. The CIP is set up at least supposed to carry. Theoretically, that's how the CIP gets funded, it's extra money. And it's set up with categories as to what's the most important, the second most important, third most important, as far as, when it needs to be done and so forth. And I just kind of wonder how we continue to jump things ahead of the CIP, and
Well,
I agree. I mean, we want to do all this stuff, but we've got priorities set previously, and we change our priorities all the
I
time.
understand what you're saying, but, like for instance, the bathroom remodels, that's something that has to be ongoing anyway. You can't let the bathroom just
That's
fall down.
maintenance, exactly. And
The new meters we had, that was something that obviously.
that was on the CIP though.
Yeah, will pay for itself.
And I'm not sure how close it is to what we anticipated.
I don't know either on that, but we know that they're obviously resourceful for what they're doing now.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
What was eliminated from, I mean, we eliminated stuff from the budget too, that was stuff that could have been fixed up with the money spent, that was taken out of the budget because we made cuts.
Right.
That would be my question too, what are some of those things?
Yeah, a lot of this fund was meant to refund the cut money that we did, not necessarily to go into the CIP. We have CIP funds that come from property sale and other accounts, and when she has a list of that fund, if these were coming from CIP fund, then they should go towards CIP items. They're not coming from that fund. We never transfer that money to the CIP fund.
I understand that.
And the priorities that happened in our January prioritization meeting are these.
No, I understand that, and again, I was making the point that the CIP always seems to get left a little bit behind, and I just wanted to make sure that, and like the dog park, I mean, I know we've been talking about that, but I don't know that we really expected to have a certain amount of funds that we were having to participate in to that extent. We weren't really sure, I guess, what was going to be fundraised versus what we were going to have to participate in the town. The GIS, I know we had that originally.
That was in the priority.
Right. Now, Rob, didn't we buy equipment though on the GIS?
We have purchased pieces, different bolts.
And I mean, originally, I thought you were planning on hiring somebody and we're buying all this equipment and stuff.
We're trying to hire
Yeah.
somebody.
But
We have hired someone.
So I hope we haven't spent money for stuff we don't have a person to run.
Yeah, we are.
We have the GIS tech
What have we spent? How much roughly did we spend?
on the
GIS.
tech. You looking
On the
for
equipment.
salary?
No, he's asking so that, the equipment I can't speak of, but the actual mapping of.
No, I know that, but I mean, I know we bought hard.
Mapping was approximately $30,000, I believe the last number was.
No, that was my question. But
I have
I'm just trying to understand
Yeah.
when when we decide money goes where.
Well, and if you
Yeah.
recall, our CIP this last year didn't get updated by the planning commission, and that was an issue within zoning. And so, when we did our prioritization meeting on MLK Day, we talked about, these are all initiatives that we talked about, except maybe the LiDAR units, which is a safety issue that came up due to the increased traffic that we have. I mean, that's
It's minimal.
very minimal. But I agree with you about the CIP should be a guiding document, and it's got to come from the ground up, and it has to stay up to date. I agree with you on that. I wanted to talk about the money just a little bit more, if okay. There is, as far as the cameras go and having the staff for cleaning that, I think the issue was that we hadn't had a lot of applicants for the job positions.
That was, you haven't had any response from the applicants. My understanding is 15 to 20 people have put in, and they were reached out to, and no one has talked about it. Not one person has returned a phone call after being there.
That might be because they're getting paid more money from the government.
Yeah, I hear you on that.
100% what it is,
Oh, yeah.
but according to being able to open the parks, you gotta have the park attendants, so we gotta relook at what we're doing with the park attendant thing.
Right.
And the cameras is a completely separate thing. The cameras is eventually gonna become a 24-hour security
Yeah,
thing.
this thing.
And to me, a $14,000 investment into a $500,000 park is absolutely, positively, we need to go that direction. I don't see how we can stop that. We've spent that money and watched people spend man-hours raising money for that park. I don't know how I don't understand how that's not in front of other initiatives.
Yeah, I'm with you on the cameras. Also, it's 2 cameras for $14,000, just for the public that maybe wasn't here when we discussed that before. And you have to buy 2, and so we're gonna have a second location, because it's a 360 camera. The whole park will be covered by one, and so we'll have a second one, because, I mean, I don't, you've explained it before, but for people that hadn't heard about
Yes,
it.
just for further clarification on the cameras, it does require 2 camera purchase. It's almost more of a contract. Obviously, you get the equipment, which is the camera, but what you're paying $13,000, $14,000 a year for is a continual upgrade and maintenance. So if you can imagine, this is a box that allegedly can take a .45 caliber bullet, so it's protected against violence with the 360, and it's also night vision. We don't have the IT, organic IT capability in-house. If something of that sophisticated nature breaks down, this particular type of contract, they service it all. The police officers are able to get on their own cell phones and then watch the camera and monitor. So because we have limited law enforcement staff, they can be on one end of the town, but still put eyes on Torrey Smith Park when they need to.
Yeah,
So,
or wherever we put the second camera, if there's.
And I believe too, there's some sort of alert system to it. If there's
It is.
motion there, it
There
goes
is.
off, so they know to look at the camera. So it's definitely an investment to protect that. And I just want to say too, I agree with Steve. I'm a little worried about jumping around on the CIP. I mean, that's a document that we should be following. And my next part would be, if I can just say one more thing, is I know this is going to lead into the CARES Act stuff. So, with that 183, imagine if we've lost the 150 from the CARES Act that the county has already taken up on. We're now down to 30,000 if we wind up using that. So, I definitely think we need to be cognizant of that. That money has been depleted in a month and a half.
Well, let's talk about that then, because I think there's some math to do on that. So, the remaining 183, 128, it will have $60,000 more once we reappropriate our parking budget, right? Because that doesn't include the $60,000 rebate back to it,
If the previous FY flushes out to where we didn't
which
know
you have
what.
projected.
Which,
We don't know at this point until the auditor.
So that would be mid-November to, for safety purposes, by December 1st, we should know if the FY flushes out to where the 60 can be replenished.
Sure, so in like 3 to 4 months we'll know that. So that'll actually be $243,000 once that correction does. So to talk about the CARES Act fund. So when we did the math before, the document, just so everybody knows, Ms. Protestant and I went to the Board of Supervisors meeting on Monday. And at that meeting, they approved reimbursement for several more items from the CARES Act money. The way that the money is functioning is that the county received approximately, $1.6 million in CARES Act funding originally, and appropriated 19.91% of it to the incorporated portion of Colonial Beach, is how their terminology is, and like 2% of it to the incorporated portion of Montrose, and the remainder of it to the county. But when the county spends the money on county-wide items, they take back 19.91% back from our appropriated fund, because they say that's a county-wide service and it services both incorporated and unincorporated areas. So that's a discussion that we've been having ongoing with the county. So the $313,000 that we were originally appropriated were not really for the town government. They were for the unincorporated portion of the county, supposedly. However, they spent a lot of it, so, and we've spent some as well. So, of the remaining, what's remaining, the county has a balance on that of $260,000, is a little more than that. And the town has a balance of $120,000. If the county spends that entire remaining balance on services that are countywide and take 19.91%, then out of that original portion, we still have available to us $68,732. They would be taking 51 of it, that 51,893. So what happened also at the meeting last night was that the county is intent on receiving an additional $1,571,739 from the CARES Act. This is the second wave of funding from the CARES Act, and it was in a resolution that they accepted at that meeting. And they're starting to, all the paperwork's been submitted. They don't have the money in hand yet, but they're already starting to fund it. And so some interesting things happened out of that. Of the 1.571739 million that is to come to the county, if you do the same kind of math and you say we're going to get 19.91%, but then they're going to take 19.91% of it, right? Then that leaves us with some funds left, but they already appropriated 300. I have to get the exact number. The school, they already appropriated like $300,000 for the Westmoreland County school system. Now that does not come out of our portion. 318. That does not come out of our town portion because we have our own school system, right? So they don't get to take the 19.91% of it from it.
But they did.
No, they didn't. No, they did not. So if you take that, if you take the 68,000 that we still will have no matter what, even if they take all of the rest of that they can, then this new money will have another $133,740. And that's because they would have been able to take more, but they spent so much on the school already, they won't be able to take that 19% out of that. Does that make sense? So if you add those two together, we still have $202,473 to spend that will be qualified for reimbursement that they can't do anything on.
What was the eligible, like what should we have gotten if they hadn't taken any of the percentages away? Do you have that number?
300.
It was 313 plus if there's additional funds, what was the?
The additional funds were roughly the same, so you take 313 times 2.
Yeah, basically would have been.
It was another 313?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I thought it was about 200.
Maybe I
Additional.
don't understand the whole process, but, so help me out here. We pay taxes to Westmoreland County just like a person who sits or lives in Westmoreland County that doesn't live in the town of Coney Beach. We pay the same taxes that person minus their school tax, okay? So why is it that we have to take an additional 19% from the town of Coney Beach?
No, I've given the.
So we're really paying 38% is what we're paying. 19 is 38, right? Somewhere around there. So, I mean, that's the truth of the matter. We're paying an additional 19%. We already pay the same county tax. If you live on behind halls, you pay a certain dollar amount real estate tax, personal property tax. We pay real estate tax and personal property tax to the county minus the school. They take out a portion of the schools. Anybody know the portion that they take out?
I thought it was
It's a small percentage.
25%.
So I don't understand why we're getting charged twice for this. The money was sent, we're 19.1% of the population. We've already paid the tax just like the other 4 districts paid. But we're paying an additional 19.1% on top of that. Because are they going to Montrose and taking out an additional? Are Are they going?
They are taking the 2%.
Yeah?
Yeah,
From Montrose.
How much is it?
2%.
2%, that's all they're getting.
2%. So my point is, in the 5 districts, what additional fees, if you live in Stratford Harbor, are you paying?
So what they're doing, and
How
I'm
many-
not here to defend the county, because
I'm
I had
saying,
already
just trying to
argued
figure out,
that exact
how are we
point.
measuring the population for the 5 districts?
They took a census population that the CARES Act took, which was,
I think they're using, I think they're trying to treat the county, sir, as a district. And I think that's where we disagree in philosophy.
Right, that's exactly.
Okay, so-
They're trying to treat Colonial Beach as a separate own district, therefore we can take from a county overall overhead perspective, we can take your money. The issue is the language inside of the CARES Act specifically points out that towns are going to be compensated by their own population, in relation to their own population, down to the dollar figure. So you have the state of Virginia telling in the paperwork that Colonial Beach will receive $313,000.
Right.
And what the county's then saying is, well, wait a minute, that's inside of our county, let me go ahead and shave some off the top. So there's a difference in philosophy. I'm going to continue to pursue that delta with the county. What concerns me is that so far they have reimbursed everything that we have. I mean, they've reimbursed. I'm not saying that, but we are working with a different amount than what was originally intended by the state. There are 99 different counties in Virginia. The overwhelming majority of the other counties are not doing that activity.
Right.
Most of them understand that when it's set out that the municipality has X amount of money, they actually made it simple for the counties. Just give that municipality that money. That's not where we find ourselves.
We're all on the same page here. I'm not, you know.
I'm just trying to clarify.
You know, I'm trying to get, I was listening to your, I can understand why you thought maybe you heard the two withdrawals at 19%. But what I heard Robin say was the money that was set aside for Colonial Beach, we had to pay the 19% out to cover the cost in that it provided by the county to the town. But it was only one time. I didn't hear
They
it
don't provide
twice.
it. They don't provide
Well,
us
what
anything.
they,
We pay their taxes. That's what we pay taxes
what
for.
we pay taxes for, or the services that they provide that we theoretically are paying for, is the 19%. Now, I'm not arguing it's right or wrong, but I only heard it come out one time. Your question was you thought we were getting hit twice on the money. The money that was set aside and given to us by the federal government is what they're taking the piece, the 19% out of one time for the services theoretically they say they're creating. I'm just answering whether it's twice or once, and I think I only heard it once.
There's 5 districts, and so we're one of 5 districts. Did the other 5 districts, are they paying a percentage based on their population? No. Because they're not independent town, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So the CARES Act specifically says, I've read it over thoroughly as well, that it's to go to the lowest denominator. We're a certified town. We're an independent town with its own school system, own police department, own tax base, own taxation. It's supposed to go to us, and then we determine where those monies go. Now, if the county had said to us, out of the 315 that you were given from the state, you're required, we would like for you to pay us this amount for this or that would have been negotiable. But the fact is, they took the money, because this didn't happen yesterday, this happened months ago, okay? They took the money, and they did what they wanted with it up front. And it wasn't until they started to receive a little more pushback and a little better understanding that I think they realized the second go around could be different, which I actually think legally we're going to prove that the first go around is going to be different, and we'll probably recover the cost, but we'll see where that goes.
The argument I agree with, but I want to finish the money aspect, because the money aspect
I just want the public to know, because most of the public has no clue that this is even happening within their town, within the county. That's how we're being dealt with right now.
The legal documentation says the town of Colonial Beach to receive this, but the way that they present it is the incorporated and unincorporated sections of the county, and that is their justification for taking money from all of the money instead of just taking money from their portion. But I digress, because we agree that that's not a valid argument. But irregardless, if we do their math, right? we will have $68,730 some dollars remaining out of the current CARES Act money that they can't touch, right? And then out of the second money, because they've already allocated so much money to the school system that won't go towards our services, we will have at least $133,740.
If they remain in the same processes that they're in now.
Which they said they would in the Board of Supervisors. That's what they said.
It should be our worst.
So, right, exactly, Steve. This is our worst case scenario. So if you add those numbers together, that's $202,473 that we will have to spend before December 31st of 2020. Because all of this money.
Specific things related to COVID, they just can't spend this on anything.
Exactly. So that's part. So we will have 202,
So I was just making sure that it included wages.
Wages specific.
Yes.
It's specific to
Right.
COVID, and that's including our
Overtime,
beach
wages,
ambassadors, our sanitation workers.
Cleaning systems.
It
things
will
like that also.
include our park people, we ever get park people.
we proposed 3 programs to the county, and we forecasted needs for those programs, financial needs for those programs. And this was done back in July, and all 3 programs have not been approved because it was a forecasted and they're only accepting receipts from us at least.
That's from us somewhere.
Right.
They're not doing
So,
that.
and stay with me on the math here, guys, because I know it's a long one. The Beach Ambassador program was $52,000. It ran for approximately June, July, August, September. So that's $13,000 a month. The playground sanitation, to get sanitation workers and be able to open up our parks.
Beach sanitation too.
And well, that's separate.
Bathrooms.
The playgrounds was first, and that was $48,000, and that was gonna run from July to October, so that's $12,000 a month. The sanitation was $37,000, and that was gonna run from May 23rd to the end of September, so that's $9,250 a month. So more or less, we're talking, about $34,000 a month, but some programs were gonna end at the end of September because that's sort of the end of the season, and one program was gonna go to October. So anyway, so if you talk about all of that, we have $202,473. If you were to fund all 3 of those programs for the remainder, because we're in August now, so we've lost some time already, you'd be talking about more or less $74,500 to fund all 3 of those programs. So that would still leave us with $127,973 to get reimbursed. That's with funding all 3 programs.
Yes.
So,
Well, we gotta spend it.
but we have to spend it.
No dispute over the math. What I would like to point out, and this is, I think, takes us into the next piece of discussion, so it's going to marry up with each other. That's if everything remains constant. And the one thing we found out with COVID is nothing is constant. A forecast is something we should all do because it's a responsible way to go about the problem set. But we're running into trying to staff, and I'll use it, the park attendants to open playgrounds, the person that goes around once an hour and sanitizes everything. And unfortunately, the current marketplace, if we were to pay somebody $10 or $11 an hour, they literally can make the same being unemployed. So what we've experienced in the very beginning is we received roughly 15 applications for that task because it's a pretty easy task to do. It's an easy way to make money, it's local, et cetera, and we can't get a call back. But if we ever are going to open up the playgrounds, and we're running into similar issues with the Beach Ambassador program, fortunately, we had a lot of employees that stepped up to the bat and really put in extra hours. A lot of folk have been working 7 days a week, and they've been doing it all summer, and they've been doing it in the heat. And they've been compensated for their efforts. But there's only so long and so much stamina our employees organic to our organization have. So we identified 3 or 4 weeks ago to council, hey, we would like to go out and look for outside sources, and council told us to go for it. The only problem is it takes us back to that whole, they're receiving just as much on unemployment as we would pay them for the activity. So we're not getting a lot of traction with bringing in the replacements, and I get it, we're towards the end of the season, but if we just want to think about what we originally forecasted versus what we might have to do, we might have to raise the money up to attract people to perform these activities.
Yeah, but some of this is raised up because our beach ambassador program that we have submitted receipts for a month is a lot less than the $13,000 that was budgeted in the original request.
Agreed.
So if we do bump it up, that still leaves quite a bit of space in there because it's almost twice.
No, agreed. The only thing I'm trying to point out is that there is an uncertainty and almost a guaranteed volatility that we have little control over, and that's the market imbalance.
Yeah, I think we all know that.
We do, but I have concerns that we simply can't get callbacks.
Well, Lisa, is it still true that if you want unemployment benefits, you have to show that you're out trying to find work?
With this COVID, it's pretty much if you were laid off, if your company is shut down and not, having people actively on site, pretty much if you're applying, they're giving it to you.
Yeah, you don't have to.
This happened back, when the housing market busted and people were losing their jobs in the stock market, if people were getting unemployment regardless of the reasons. Right now, if you apply for unemployment, you're most likely going to get it. And Congress has put all this money into it, so roughly, it was $600 a week. The rumor is now it's going down to $400 a week. But like I said, if we're trying to pay someone $10 an hour, they can make more sitting at home doing nothing on unemployment. And they're not getting denied. So unfortunately, that's just what it is.
You're going to steal people from your own other departments or other jobs. And we upset the apple cart with our staffs in public works and things like that. It becomes a real problem.
Public works is really getting pushed very thin now, trying to sanitize everything. We can't get sanitation workers.
Yeah, I hear all that. I'm just saying the number wise, as far as what was requested, which was more than, the monthly average that was budgeted for that. That if we have the 202, they can't touch that amount of money. And even if we ran all three of those programs at $74,000, we still have $127,000 that we're going to be able to spend. And that's a good thing.
Right.
That's something that we should know, that those programs are going to be able to be reimbursed if we do decide, if we have people that apply for the job, we will be able to.
And that's what we're talking about, raising that,
Right.
start that rate.
What if we got away from trying to hire employees and we hired firms, cleaning firms, Rainbow, people like that who do disinfection, things like that? Then we don't run into the problem of stealing our own people and upsetting our own apple cart. And that's something we just cut off and we don't have a problem with later. So maybe going out to some of the environmental firms anyway. Cleaning companies.
We certainly can pursue that, absolutely. Obviously
They're busy too.
I understand, but
Hopefully they're not running into.
right now, we haven't had a hurricane yet, so maybe some of the environmental cleanup firms are available,
It's worth a try.
And we'll certainly pursue that, and if we are lucky enough to find a firm that can take on that outsourcing capability, obviously numbers change again. And we'll get back to council.
We got the offer for that.
Yeah, and we'll get back to council with those numbers.
I think it's a great idea, but I just will say that I don't think they're going to charge us $10 an hour.
No. We've got the buffer is my point to pay for it.
The way it's written is somebody has to be there, this equipment has to be cleaned. I think y'all are doing bathrooms every hour. Every hour, and it has to be done specific with specific cleaners that cost extra money. And I think we haven't even put up the plexiglass in the offices yet. We haven't done the thing that does the floor at our public buildings. We haven't done any of that kind of stuff. I think everybody was kind of hoping that this thing would reside at some point in time, and maybe they'd find a cure or something. But we could. Quinn is right. This could be lasting forever. We don't know what the.
These funds only have to. We'll get more funds eventually.
So
These are things that we need to start talking about, spending the money on.
Oh, we need to spend
Right
money.
now.
Second round.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the other part of this, and this is the end of the numbers, and I'll stop with the numbers, but if, we know that the remainder of the CARES Act the first push of money and the amount of the second push of money is gonna give us at least 202 that they can't take from us, that would be over $40,000 a month in receipts. And so far, from March until now, our average is about $15,000 in receipts. So we have to up it quite a bit to reach that. So when we talk about the bigger picture of fighting the county over the extra money and how they're handling the whole thing, I mean, we're submitting $15,000 approximately in receipts. They're approving everything, and we can still submit up to $40,000 a month for the rest of the year. So, you know, let's talk about how we're gonna spend it.
All right, we have been talking a little bit, I've been talking with Rob and Quinn a little bit about the things that we need to start looking into purchasing. One of the things is we are running into problems finding PPE, disinfectants, things like that. We really need to start stocking up, because if this thing goes wild in November again, like they're saying it could, then we are going to be hard pressed to find stuff. So we need to start stocking up now. We've talked about getting sanitation units for the parks, things like that. There's a lot of things that we do need to start purchasing now and submit to the county, and get taken care of now, not waiting until December.
Projection that they don't allow. So
No, if we buy it, it's a receipt.
Yes, if we purchase it, they will reimburse us.
Okay.
That's what they're doing.
I mean, that's just it, we need to start buying stuff.
Well, let me ask you, I mean, can we?
And there's also FEMA. I've talked to FEMA. I'm talking to them every week. If the county does not, if we stock up on PPE and cleaning products and the county will not reimburse us, FEMA will pay 75%. We can submit a claim to FEMA for it. So we have another avenue there.
Right, but
for
so far they
cleaning
haven't
supplies,
put it in every
disinfecting.
receipt. Yeah. So I think we need to buy some things, is what it sounds like.
Well, I mean, that's a drop in opinion, buy some PPE, I mean, that's a certain amount, but out of what we gotta spend is a lot. I mean, why don't we start talking to private security firms about the beach ambassador thing? I mean, the people is the problem. The material things are inconsequential in the big scheme of things. The people is the problem. We need cleaning people, we need security people, ambassador people, whatever you're looking at. And we know we've always had an issue in the town with trying to find help, good, at any point. We don't upset the apple cart if we go after the private sector and try to draw them in. It's a profit opportunity for these people. I hate to see people make big money on emergencies, but it is what it is. So go after the private sector and security for ambassadors and so forth, and the cleaning, environmental firms and so forth, on the cleaning and disinfection.
I agree with Steve on that.
We got a big lot of money to spend to do it.
And when I go back to the cameras, I still agree that we should not hold that. I'm good with going forward with that. But we should open our parks. I mean, there's no reason to tell me any longer that we cannot.
clean them.
I know, but if we have to hire a firm in order to do that, if we have to do that, we need to do it, because people need that.
We'll pursue outsourcing both security and sanitation. I think labor is critical, and that's the X number that we're all talking about. It'll be pricey. I would also like to say probably in the last 2, if not 4 weeks, and it's good Miss Lane is here because she's the primary beach ambassador. One of the reasons why our numbers for reimbursement are so low is because staff is absolutely running on empty.
Sure.
I understand.
So if we had the bodies, it probably would have been twice the amount for this month. We don't have the bodies.
Right. But even if it was twice the amount, we still have $40,000 a month.
I can come up with ways to spend money.
I'm sure you can.
I mean, like a Castlewood. I mean, right now, part of the problem, those bathrooms are difficult to clean. Suppose we closed them down, and how many hours a day is Castlewood open?
It's not a.
No, I'm talking about the
you
people.
mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, 12, 16 hours a day. So let's put 10 porta potties up there on the ticket, and that way we go up and lock all but 2 off and open 2 clean ones. And then at the end of the day, clean them all at one time. Instead of having somebody full-time up there go clean them all at one time.
I think
Or have the service company come in.
but it doesn't fix the slide problem. You really have to have someone sitting there sanitizing the park.
What I meant was the bathrooms themselves, we're trying to keep clean for the boaters and everything also.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm just saying is instead of trying to keep one set clean every hour, let's put a bunch of spares up there and have clean ones that we could open it every 2 hours or what have you. So we're cleaning them maybe once a day instead of having a full-time person up there all day. I'm just trying to figure out ways to logistically make it happen.
Yeah, no, there's actually a we have to clean the bathrooms over there as well. Right
If
now,
you close them off, you don't. You lock 2, when you got 10 of them sitting there,
We don't
12 of them.
He's saying we have the CARES Act money to spend.
That's
Right.
my
So
point.
let's use the
Yeah,
CARES
like
Act
the
money to
porta
spend to
johns.
get porta johns.
Mhm.
And if you have 10 of them there and it's open for 10 hours,
Yeah.
each hour you switch which
Turn
porta
them
john
on.
is available, and at the end of the day, you come in and flush them all out and then start back over. Our problem, I kind of get where Steve is going with this, because our problem is
Once a
manpower.
week.
We can't find the manpower, and this prevents us from having to find the manpower and allows us
It
to.
reduces the manpower
Yeah.
needs, and, you know, I mean, even down at the beach house, I don't know if that works down there either, you
And I
know?
don't know if it's the key option. I think the better option would be
I
the
agree.
company coming in being able to do it.
I
I think
agree
a
with
better
that.
option is trying to come in, but I understand the
Yeah, I'm just looking for different avenues. You opened it up, now I'm
Sure.
thinking.
Well, I think one of the key points to put out too is there's not somebody at Castlewood all day. There's somebody going around hourly and cleaning all the restrooms. So they're cleaning the bathhouse here. I guess Rob, the bathrooms here at the Cannon.
Here, Cannon.
And then they go down to Castlewood. So they're making a loop.
Making a loop.
And we've got one person doing that. So we don't have one person at each public bathroom facility that we have. We got one person doing it all. And that's also the person that's helping with trash and everything else, right?
Yeah.
So I mean,
But that also keeps them from maybe able to clean
We need to
art.
give them a
you know,
hero award,
facilities
whatever that
and things like
is.
that.
I mean,
I do. Try to privatize, that's all we can do is privatization. The one time.
I think that's definitely.
staff will aggressively pursue the outsourcing of both of those activities to utilize the CARES money.
Yeah, and I thank you for being as conservative with the spending as you've
Oh,
been.
absolutely.
I mean, it's impressive, honestly. But I think we can have a little bit more reassurance now and, you know, to open up for a lot of these things, so.
Especially in today's world, being conservative is smart. So.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, are we done with the CARES Act?
That's all I got.
Well, this was
I know,
this
I'm
has not
sorry.
been going for a long time, so this will always be around.
And you know, we've been thinking about a lot of temporary measures, because we thought that's all it was gonna take while we were trying, that's why we were utilizing existing staff and everything
Yeah.
else, but if this thing's gonna continue, we gotta come up with more of a permanent solution. to sort of
We need to say we're gonna, you know, I mean, we're gonna have expenditures till December 31st and
And I'll just add one more thing to that. VOSHA has put out new guidelines too, and they've made it quite clear that they are going to be starting to like actually come out and look at places. So we really need to look at our sanitation practices, because that's what will get us fined.
Well, we also gotta look at all of our existing practices, because if they're down here looking at one thing, they're gonna look at everything, so we gotta be top notch on everything if they're gonna be coming.
So hiring an outside company would probably help us with that.
Safety person, that could be something that we could put in too.
Well, some of the liability becomes them. If it's not done, we're not liable. We hired a company, you were supposed to do it right.
No, you're still alive.
Well,
you're still liable.
You're still liable,
You're
but
still
you
liable.
now have.
But it also looks good to OSHA if you have a consultant who's working with
Like
you.
the sue the company.
I
if you hire
misspoke
them,
out
you're still alive.
loud, but
No,
it shares the blame.
All right, next on the discussion is beach policies. There's been some issues that have been brought up about the beach recently, obviously. One of the first ones is smoking on the beach. What happened was recently we had a beach cleanup. We organized from a group out of Alexandria, and kudos to Public Works. I think I said this in the last meeting. Phenomenal job keeping our beaches clean. The bags were filled primarily with cigarette butts and bottle tops, and lots of cigarette butts. So it was a question as to whether or not we could create an ordinance that would ban cigarette smoking on the beach. We had a lawyer who was going to look into it, and I don't know that since we don't have them present right now, so we don't know what the outcome is of that. Anyway. So Virginia has funny rules about tobacco use because it's a tobacco state. However, the town is responsible for the beaches, so I don't know, there's something, we'll have to figure that out. Did Jim ever get back to you on anything on the smoking on the beaches at all? I know that he's mentioned before Virginia's a tobacco state, and it's hard to get laws like that through the assembly, but that local levels can do it if, like, we're responsible for the beach, like not having dogs on the beaches and things like that.
Jim hasn't got me back in the last couple of days. I believe the last discussion, fruitful discussion that we had with Jim was that the first opportunity might be a designated smoking area.
Okay.
Because it is a tobacco state. Keyword might. So we have to look into it. It's not as simple. I don't know if the enforcement is able to be done. And I don't mean just from a common sense point of view. I mean from is it a recommended smoking area, or is it a no kidding, this is where you're going to smoke and you can't smoke on the beach? So there's more to follow on that. We're going to continue to research it, and I will digitally push it out to council as I receive that information, because Jim's schedule is sporadic at best.
Thank you on that. Recently, as recent as today, there's an issue with people jumping off the town pier.
It's non-stop, worst ever.
So, Rob's gonna acquire new signage that prohibits jumping off the town pier. And, I would suggest if we have any other places that we would be fearful. We already have them at the boat ramp, no swimming, no whatever. We should probably do that as well. And for sure, on the town pier, no jumping on the pier. There's liability issues. If the sign
put the seagull strips across the top of the rail, they have a heck of a time standing.
Yeah. And then part 3 of this was, we've had also, at least my phone blows up on a fairly regular basis, about overnight camping on the beach. The one particular episode that apparently took place down by the cannon, I was there early enough in the morning to watch those people put their tent up, so it just seemed like they were probably there overnight, but it was real early in the morning when they put that up. As far as the dog piece of that, I don't know if we had a dog. I didn't see the dog, but I understand a dog from their group attacked a smaller dog. Again, that's an enforcement issue for your folks. If you're not aware, I see some people in the audience, I'm sure, here partly because of what happened down at what we call the South Beach, which is right down Castlewood Beach down there. We recently had some folks who have a place in town with some friends, I guess. We're on the beach, and we had a couple vehicles, actually a sedan, a small Corolla, a Toyota Camry, I think it was, drove onto the beach, got stuck. A van drove on the beach, it got stuck trying to pull the car out. We ended up with tow trucks getting them out. That wasn't the first time this summer we've had it happen. I've been here a long time. I've never seen cars drive on our beach, ever. This is the first year. And why? I don't know.
Ballards down there?
You can drive out, you just can't get back out.
Yeah, you drive onto it, you can't drive back off of it because you're stuck. Anyway, that said, it created a huge commotion. It created a very confrontational situation that I saw the entire video of, and it was extremely disturbing. From all angles, extremely disturbing. Something I don't ever want to see again on our town beaches anywhere involving our citizens or our guests. So we put big chunks of rocks down there, big boulders down there to stop people from driving on the beach, and signage up, unfortunately not allowing people to park and disembark with their beach umbrellas and chairs and such. So much like when you go to Ocean City, Virginia Beach, you're just going to have to hoof it from Castlewood Park with your stuff, or if you have a golf cart, get as close as you can, take it over there and get out of the way. But that's where we're at right now. I'd like for the council to consider all of these things. I think we've mostly corrected the parking area, although I hear people are still stopping there to drop stuff off. Hopefully our police, they are definitely more mindful now. They're going to put a bigger bite into it. If you're stopped there and you're offloading, you get a ticket. It's pretty simple. You're obstructing traffic, you're going to get a ticket.
Russians up there, we got on Irving too. They say,
Yeah.
I don't know how to not get stuck in the ditch on Irving.
So, anyway, with that, that's that part. Anything else on beach policies?
I just wanted, because I had called Quinn numerous times about items that we're seeing, you know, more so down on the boardwalk, because that's where I'm at a lot. And, you know, fishing from the beach, when kids are swimming right there, people are casting fishing lines over them from the beach. But my point was, and we talked, you know, going back to the beach ambassadors, you know, if we were able to get maybe something of like a private security firm or something, I don't mean wearing uniforms or anything like that, something with a, you know, plenty of beach shirt or whatever, but a little more presence that it knows a little bit more about the policies and maybe is not as apprehensive about enforcing or mentioning some of the issues other than just social distancing and so forth. Because we've got so many more people on the beach than normal. And not only is this, you know, the COVID issues, part of the problem is creating, you know, issues, you know, with all the ordinances down on the boardwalk area mainly, I think, where it gets the least oversight. So that was my point, is if we couldn't if we could improve and get more ambassadors and enhance their role to also try to help enforce some of the policies, because you know, I mean, I think the biggest problem is that people just miss the signs. So much of it, they don't see the signs and they've never been here before. And, you know, I would have liked to have seen us, you know, have something like you see in the mall. When you enter the boardwalk, you got something right in the middle. You walk into it if you're not paying attention, and it's got the ordinances. Well, nobody liked that idea last year, but I think that's what it's going to take to get people to see what the rules are and understand the rules. You know, and okay, too bad, we can't drive our dump truck up and down the boardwalk all day long. Too bad, use the Kubota. But, you know, put something out there that you can see. People are going to see it when they walk onto the boardwalk. Right now, I just think there's so many people out there, they're looking past the signs, and the signs are so high that you can't get your hair on. So, I think those are two of the main things, signage and enforcement. Enforcement with the ambassadors, though, you can't cover it completely with the police department. It's impossible.
Right. Good.
And a couple things. And I want to thank, Rob's team, really the whole public works department that's doing beach cleanup. I know that we have had several people concerned about trash on the beach, and that continues to be it's overwhelming in some senses. Have you been gone out there, picked up trash? You've gone out, picked up trash. I know that's, I encourage citizens that if you're able and willing to do that, to continue to try to help us, also make public works aware when you see something. But you all have been very responsive to anything that I've brought to your attention, so I appreciate that. I know we had some pier boards loose, and I think you already addressed that.
It's not tomorrow.
Okay, and then the sleeping on the beach, that I heard of I know which one you're talking about, but I heard of 2 other incidents that were down by River's Edge.
Yes,
I saw that as well. That's where I started.
You saw it? Yeah.
That's where I started.
Okay, so I didn't see it. I don't want to see it,
Yeah.
but
I haven't been there.
but I think part of the problem was, and I talked to Bruce about this, and I also want to thank Bruce because he was also very responsive and very, just on top about handling it. But the problem is you can't see them from the road there. It's not like Irving where you can drive down and you can see the whole beach because the hotel is there and because there's no parking lot in that section. There's like a section that is not visible from the road. So the officers are going to get out of their cars even during the middle of the night now. You know, and I think part of it was they are running thin. If they have a call, they're not at the beach, you know, but it's taking that extra step to make sure they walk the boardwalk, or because we have bicyclists and things during the day that are a little more feasible on the boardwalk because you can't drive the police vehicle down the boardwalk. So it takes that extra step too, and then the last thing I wanted to talk about was just, is it reasonable to maybe consider, adding a loading and unloading zone at Castlewood, at maybe at Central, so that there was a place designated for pulling off and unloading your stuff and then having someone go park the car. I don't know if that's reasonable enough. So,
I don't think so. I think that-
yeah, they
There's
need to
two
walk it
instances
from the
that we
parking
get, I
lot.
think it would create more of a problem.
Well, I don't mean where the problem issue happened, that's
No,
not what I mean.
no, I'm not talking about you.
Yeah, I don't
I'm
mean
just
in that
saying
area.
In general, it's usually a car here and a car there, it's not like they're
It's
all
not.
lined up.
Okay.
And so I'm wondering if we created a spot, we'd end up creating
You're
more
right.
lines.
You're right.
You know, but I agree.
Sometimes I
Worth a
think
thought.
openly, you know, about
When you
things.
go, you know, we've all been there, you go to the beach, and you're not staying right on the front hotel, you gotta schlep that stuff over, and when you got 2 or 3 kids in tow, and I can remember packing all that stuff in my back and having to make 2 or 3 trips, you know, the place set, the whole thing.
It's easy here, go to Virginia Beach or the ocean and try to do it. It's easy here.
Here, it's easy, I agree.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, I was just, you know, thinking.
Yeah, that's a good thought. Okay, well, with that, we'll move into status items. Number 6, playground equipment. What do we know about playground equipment?
We put the playground equipment out for bid, on the East Virginia Public Procurement Portal. We've received 7 bids, and the bids were rated, and the highest rated bid ended up being Miracle Recreation Equipment Company, and that was prepared by, pardon me, I put my glasses on. That was prepared by Site Concepts, and it was their Plan B, and for $48,812. That is the one that came out highest rated. Waiting council's direction if they agree with the piece of equipment.
Yeah, I was reading yours, do you know?
Yeah.
Did I see one?
I had someone contact me about wanting parts from the other equipment, from old equipment, and they would remove the whole thing.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
We would get with, the attorneys to let them write up a waiver of liability for anything.
I'm sure it'll be
Yeah.
fine. So this includes everything. Is that right?
That includes everything, installation and equipment.
Ground cover, perimeter.
Ground cover, perimeter. Actually, this one actually had handicap access.
When you say handicap access, you mean handicap access to each piece of equipment?
No, to the interior perimeter, we actually would have a ramp.
Okay.
So breaking your perimeter.
Did you go look at the book?
I wasn't,
Oh.
he has 3 people to do it.
I didn't read them, but I did look at the book.
Any questions about this?
I did, I'll say I did, I was one of the ones that rated them. I look at the books, this one was the one that I had highest rated. Second was the one that the original proposal came off of. And, go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking. So the monies for this, there's the monies that we had approved in the priority section to replace Castlewood equipment, that's right. Do we know what the dollar amount was on that? Was it 50K?
60.
60.
If we're talking about the resolution from the previous month was
Yeah.
60.
It's 60.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Okay.
from earlier.
Yeah. Now, will we end up having, I know we've had this discussion, are we gonna end up eventually needing, a parking lot for people to park? Do you realize this?
You have that great road.
Yes.
We're gonna need a shoulder on the road. The roads aren't wide enough to park on up there and get past, so if we're gonna figure using the road for parking, then you better figure on improving shoulders on two sides of
I'm
that.
thinking.
I think she's talking about that old gravel
There's an
road.
old road that's not named
In the middle.
in the middle, right?
Right down the middle of the.
The intent was to park on the interior road, not on the
Right.
side.
Agreed. I think the issue that, planning and zoning brought up is, the entrance onto that interior road needs to be looked at hard by VDOT.
Right.
To make sure that it meets the standards, that it is what it is. And this also kind of dovetails into the next topic of conversation too. So if it's council's pleasure to move forward, then we also need to kind of start discussing placement, general concept.
I think placement was included in the resolution.
It was, but if we entertain the second thing here with motorhome parks, then we probably want to optimize space, and if council had any input on that. Now, if council doesn't want to entertain the motorhome park, then that's a dead discussion.
I see how we can vote on the parking lot until we vote on the motorhome park, because it's gotta be incorporated together.
Which then takes
The
us,
resolution, there was mostly consensus that we would at least consider a motorhome park.
I thought we actually made a resolution to recommend it to the planning commission for discussion to happen.
Yeah,
So that was part of that, so it's in their ballpark.
Okay.
It's gonna have to come to the planning commission before we
Yeah,
should make any
I agree.
decision on it, so.
I agree, but I also see what you're saying, because what Steve's saying is, you have to, if you're gonna do the motorhome park, you have to have,
You've got to incorporate
that in it, even if it's just a small piece of it. But one bigger question I have, is going back to the ADA compliance on this, is do we have to provide I know it's ADA accessible, I guess that's some kind of entryway?
it literally is a ramp onto the playground.
Okay, so will the surface getting from there to the playground, will that have to be ADA compliant?
Would have to be smooth.
You don't have to.
Okay, I'm just asking because if we're, I don't know, but I figure probably some of our older parks aren't required to be ADA compliant because they're grandfathered in. But the newer parks, I don't know, is that something you would know about, Kathleen?
I've actually talked to Rob and what about, sorry.
I've actually talked to Rob and Quinn about past practices with the Torrey Smith Park and how, and upgrading, existing facilities in order to bring them into ADA compliance. But I believe that if it's a new development, you're gonna have to provide parking for handicap and meet the federal ADA requirements.
Just food for thought from my standpoint, that's all. I just don't want to see us throw this thing in there and say, oh, we have to do this or do that, that's all. I like the idea, the concept, but I just want to make sure that, cross the T's and dot the I's, as they say. And you brought up the ADA compliance, and that's what made me think, are we going to do ADA compliant?
The access is ADA compliant. As far as the perimeter.
I think the ADA compliance on the thing that it's referring to is instead of having to step over the perimeter, there's a place in the perimeter that has a ramp that you can walk through or come through.
Okay.
That's the
It's
ADA
an
compliance that the
accommodation.
playground provides. The ADA compliance that we're referring to, talking about, is getting from the vehicle to the playground.
Correct.
That's what we have to provide. Because it is new, I don't think there's a way around it, it's not grandfathered in.
That should be pretty simple though, there's size requirements and striping, and there's plenty of room along that interior roadway.
One thing on the bid, I was one of the people who looked at it, and when I went through, I could not find, and I'm looking now and still cannot find any of the material of the low bid or miracle here. Basically, we had the specs from Burke that we used as the bid documents. We had the bidders come in. They were supposed to provide some certifications or what their materials were, what have you. Most of them didn't, but I was able to find most of the information under their warranties, where I could find that, you know, they were using aluminum posts and, you know, this and that. Miracle, I couldn't find any, and the number 2 person was plastic. And that's, I stayed away from both of them because I don't know what the material is on this Miracle people as compared to Burke. I was able to determine that on the other bidders, but not them, and I was able to determine the second bidder was nothing but a plastic system. So I think that we need to go back on this and make sure that the materials themselves are what we've asked for, because not everybody did anything equal to, or, you know, one person did the Burke cover. And I just couldn't determine that they had the materials that were actual metal and so forth, whereas the others, there was a lot more information on material, although it was under the warranty divisions instead of in actual specs and details. So that would be my only question before we would award these, is what the actual materials are, item by item, to the Burke system. That's all I have.
Anybody know anything about that?
Rob, can you get us some information on that before we?
Sure, I'll address it. Burke, theirs, I don't know if theirs was complete either, but I'll address that.
Well, we had that in our RFP, though. That's where I had it there. And see, nobody really fulfilled a lot of the requirements that we requested, mainly in material specification. And so, but like I say, the ones that had warranty info, they had different warranties on what their components were. So I was able to tell what the components were for those. The Miracle, I couldn't, and I'm one of those people that just believes that, you know, the price is too good to be true. It's typically not true. And, you know, like you could tell the one was plastic because his freight was $1,000 and everybody else's was $5,000. This guy doesn't have any freight, and he gives us a $10,000 discount. So it just was running flags up to me, and I would like to ask a few more questions before we went with them to make sure what the item by item issue is with the specs.
When you rated them, I didn't see it on the, final sheet. Are your ratings not included in the rest of the?
Well, yeah, I did. I mean, what you guys had on this rating sheet.
But I mean, did you select that first and a second?
Yeah, right here. And,
because I thought, I was kind of glad you were one of the people going in there, because I was thinking you were really expensive.
That's what I took. And I mean, I spent a good hour on the previous things and all that information.
So it's,
I had another sheet that I scribbled all over.
I see. Okay, that's fine. Well, I like your input, included in the bid.
Well, I mean, somebody's just got, I mean, I was, you know, I didn't have any way I could pull their website up or anything in the room when I'm looking at the bids, and they didn't provide any information. So I think we've got to go back and ask for them to provide their specs so that we can at least compare them to what we requested in the way specifications.
Through the procurement policy, we do have the ability to go back and ask the question about the material. As council would like us to, that's not an issue. What material would we prefer?
Well, the Burke system is what we requested. So what I did is I went ahead and analyzed 3 that I could determine met the material specifications based on what they turned in, and I gave it to that was my recommendations that way. If I couldn't determine that they met the specifications or that they definitely didn't, then I did not consider them as appropriate bidder.
It seems to me from even your analysis though, that, the remainder, second choice was the Burke system from Walmart, right?
Yes.
So,
The only
don't
I
need-
can say this, for just a few $100 more, for $500 and some dollars, the best value was this one here. I mean, their system and what they gave you and everything for $500 more is definitely worth it. If we were looking at those 3.
So that
Because the
was
span was less than $500 on the 3 bids.
Right.
So then I said, to me, that's nothing. Let's look at what's the best bang for the buck, and this one here is. That's why I put best value, third bidder by $500.
What I would like to share with council is that this current bidding process isn't a lowest price technically acceptable. It can be best value.
That's exactly how I look at it.
It should be. We shouldn't be going on the lowest bidder.
Right, it's not the lowest bidder.
If it was completely hard, the specs were hard, then we wouldn't really have any choice. But this, we absolutely have the opportunity to do that. That's why I looked at it that way.
I didn't evaluate the bids, it was you and,
Myself.
I'm not sure. Well, we want to get clarification on that?
I said I can't do it out here in that.
Yeah, reach out to them.
I don't know if it changes what I do.
And are we just doing just the two? Validate?
You said 3 of them had the
Three of them had the specifications. They were all within $500 of each other. The third out of the 3 of those, in my opinion, when you look at the layout of the equipment, what they give you, it's a much more enhanced pieces of equipment than what the initial Burke layout was. So I think we just get more bang for the buck out of them for $500. If in fact.
What I'm asking is if they're gonna go ask for the further specs, do we wanna, should we ask all 4 for the specs?
We had the specs on the one.
I mean,
We have the
I
specs
had
on
to
the
find
other
them.
He said
I had to find them through warranty and stuff,
hear
but I
you.
satisfied myself. But really, we got no complete specs from anybody other than like the Burke people.
Alright, well, let's get them going forward.
I know it's a pain for that. Or, quite honestly, if you got somebody just to look the systems up on the internet, because they're all on the internet, and we can evaluate them that way and just print out specs.
Sounds to me like if the systems for the one that was rated the highest meet the same specifications as the Burke, then that wouldn't change anything from the.
Yeah, I would think we could narrow it down some so that we'd have to do it also.
I agree. But that would be the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. Pull them up on the internet, print their spec sheet out, because they give you the system number right there. I'm going out of town, that's how we'll do it.
So back to status items, back to the motorhome park. Do we know that the planning commission has been given the information responsibility to look into a motorhome park?
It's my understanding that the previous planning administrator has brought it up to the planning commission, but I do not know if it's on the planning commission's schedule or agenda to discuss.
One thing I would recommend, if you could, was I know on Robin's PowerPoint it said RV. I think what we are looking more towards is not trailerable things versus a self-contained motorhome. And people had said, well, what about them driving around the streets to go get things? Well, like most of them, they won't. They'll take the bicycles, or they'll run a golf cart, or have a golf cart, or whatever. So but if we could just get the planning commission on board to give us some idea of where we stand in that process, that will help us know what we're doing moving forward. All the projects.
Well, with council's directed and guided, I almost think that we do, and this is kind of the point I was trying to allude to earlier, because we're talking about the same geography. So 2 different procurement possibilities, right? You have a motorhome/RV park, you have a playground, because the planning commission, or the nature of what the planning commission is, which is trying to look at things holistically, I think that they would almost have to take a look at the playground to understand the footprint proposed, and also look at what they may want to recommend or may not want to recommend, and then we get a good decision from our new planning administrator on what that looks like in terms of the way forward. I would be very remiss if we went forward with one and then had to undo something to satisfy the other. That's my concern. I don't know if it would flush itself out that way, because I don't know what I don't know. But I think we have to look at that.
We can expedite the planning commission putting a set of eyes on the process to look what's going to be required and what their take on it is, and then coordinate that with our planning and zoning office to see what it's going to take to do it, and then if it can be done expeditiously, and if the playground's going to go on there, playground equipment's going to go on there, then it can be determined exactly what's the best place to put the playground equipment to facilitate the RV park.
That's
Because
right.
If you're gonna,
Completely agree.
there's nothing wrong with an RV park having a playground. I mean, it's
And I
a good
think
thing.
that's the kind of guidance that council,
Right.
that's the kind of guidance that council needs to, relate to the planning administrator, so she then in turn can, relay that to the planning commission. We just wanna make sure that we understand they're both two separate things, but we don't want them to conflict with each other.
I just want to reiterate that in that whole discussion, that it was very clear that it was very important for the playground to be in a shaded area. There are only 2 locations that fit the dimensions of this playground on that area. And that's why the quadrant, and that's why the specifications of the resolution were done that way. And I think that's, the planning commission will take that resolution in the way that that was done, you know, and factor with whatever they consider and however the discussion is.
Again, my concern more so the coordination between potential developments and,
Yeah.
right now, the way I look at it, I mean, we can't even open our current playgrounds, we're going into the fall, we've got the winter, this and that, why are we in such a big rush to put the playground in right now? Let's get it coordinated with the RV. I mean, we didn't have the RV park idea necessarily when we thought of the playground. I thought Frank came up with it, I thought it was a wonderful idea to at least consider whether forward we go or not. But it's gotta be coordinated together, it has to be. And we've got some time to do it and do it properly. If we get on the planning commission, let's not sit back and say, next spring's a long ways off. No, it'll be here before we know it, we gotta keep moving. But let's do it together instead of separately.
I completely agree. I mean, I said that last time, I think we're moving too fast, and it needs to be built together. I mean, it's the two things, they coincide, it's the same piece of land.
Well, okay. So, will you move this to the
Yes.
planning commission ASAP?
Yes, and Ms. Easley, when you reach out to the planning commission, ensure that they appreciate that shade is paramount for the playground, so they don't go off on a different route. That's one of the things that they need to highly consider.
Yeah, it's in the whole thing, if I remember your drawing, the whole thing doesn't have to be an RV park or a motorhome park. I think we figured even if you only had 18 spaces, it still would generate almost $200,000 a year if it was done right.
We've reached out, based off of previous council meeting, I know Flag Shack has done us a solid, and she's reached out to see what she could find out, just basic research on what municipalities actually run a RV park. I think she came up with three. I think she was able to talk to a company that was involved in double digits, somewhere around 15 or 17. With the understanding of those 15 or 17, 3 municipalities actually ran the RV park.
One's the Newport News, it's one of the most successful in the region supposedly, as well. And, this concept would be fairly simple because it's just motorhomes, it's not the whole thing of, having people leaving their trailers there unattended.
That's one thing I think you gotta pay attention to. These people travel in groves, and if you cut the trailers, the fifth wheel trailers out, then you're allowed to cut some of the business out. I don't know that it's a negative to have trailers. I don't mean the little ones, but I mean the larger ones. But I think we have to be open about how you get stuff in and get stuff out. Because all this stuff's gotta be drive-through.
Right.
Has to be drive-through. And, so everything's gotta be able to face the streets on all 3 sides. And, but I think, we get a conceptual layout done, I'd work with you a little bit, try to do something there. But, I think it's exciting. I think we need to move on the side if we're gonna go forward, so that we can either separate the playground out or go.
Well, I think there's time restraints on the resolution too, so we need to figure out what we're gonna do with that.
Well, part of the reason why that quadrant was there was because that's where the trees are most densely located, which would interrupt where the drive-through.
Well, I mean, we need to look at the whole thing. That's all.
So
I agree with you.
So Rob, you're gonna look at the bids and contact the people, find out exactly what materials are being used. Quinn, and you'll reach out to the planning commission, like tomorrow, someone from there and say, you know, we hate to do this to you, but we need some expedited ideas and set eyes on this process. And you're certainly with your background, very involved in that aspect.
Well, I think there's two things, in my opinion, that the planning commission needs to review. One, the coordination between a concept like this and the location of the playground, whether that would infringe on it. And then two, the zoning code has to be amended. I mean, this is not like you can just say, okay, let's pull some trailers up tomorrow. That parcel is zoned R2. Do we want to allow R2?
Well, we actually stopped.
It was given to the town for that to start with.
We can't use it as R2. We've
Right,
already
so
proven
do
that.
we need to rezone it? I mean, that takes public hearings, you know, there are processes to that, so.
Well, one good thing about
Right.
motorhomes
It's not even
is they're.
permitted use.
We don't have RV parks as a use,
Right.
a listed use, period.
But one good thing about it is it's not a permanent fixture, so they're not permanent.
Well, and the other thing I think is important, all we're doing right now, is we're talking about trying to get a concept down, to make a decision as to whether or not to do an RV park.
Yes.
I don't think we want to get everybody excited about the fact that we made a decision to do it. That's not the case.
Yeah, we need to call it motorhome. That what I had in
Is there any additional guidance that we should give the planning commission and or staff to?
just to work with Kathleen and see if it's feasible.
Sure.
That's all.
Can I ask a question? Would you ask these people in the back to just keep the conversation down? We're trying to hear what's going on, and they've got a secondary conversation going on here.
Okay.
Just ask it further.
Could you please keep it down in the back so Mr. Kennedy and the rest of the folks can hear what is being said from the council table up here? Thank you very much.
Maybe I'll sit right here, Bill. Alright, you sit here running your
Okay. All right, guys. Good enough. All right, let's get to citizen input.
Oh, good.
David Williams. David, if you just tell us who you are and what your address is. And we give you a whopping 3 minutes. So, okay?
Can I pull the mask down or?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. A little nervous. This is my first time ever speaking at a town council meeting. My name's David Williams. I live at 1535 Irving Avenue. So I'm in the middle of your discussion. What you're doing right here directly impacts me, a lot of my neighbors, and we're pretty upset, quite frankly. I'm going to try to stay calm and just state my case. But, you know, I mean, all the way from the parking signs where I've got pictures of town guys standing here putting in a sign and somebody parking there and unloading their car. So that doesn't work. I woke up one day and there's a big parking lot in the back of my house because I'm on Irving, but I also have the park in back of me. I saw a big park. I mean, it took me months to be able to tear out a chunk of my driveway to put in a porch because of the Chesapeake Bay Act, so I'm a little concerned about that. Just wanted to state my opinion on that. I don't know how the Chesapeake Bay Act feels about it, but you know, porta-johns all over the place. I don't like that idea. You know, smells. I mean, we're getting a lot of extra people in there, and you know, I'm all for the citizens enjoying the town, but we also have to take into consideration that us, the taxpayers, pretty much pay for 99.9% of the people that come in here to enjoy the beach for free almost. So I think we do have some kind of a say. What's got me a little bit fired up and brought me in here tonight was, you know, seeing stuff online about, like, you know, putting in an RV park. I'm totally against that. I've talked to a lot of my neighbors that live right along there. They're not for it. A lot of them have been living here for years and they've experienced the old RV park. You know, we can't even get the police to enforce the, you know, parking in front of our houses. So how are they going to enforce people up the street drinking, you know, all the extra crowd on the beach from that area? I guess one of my biggest points is, you know, that we're talking about $1 million piece of property the town owns
It's town property, and I get it, they wanna keep it a green space to, you know, protect the views or whatever. But, why aren't the citizens getting a say in this? Why don't we, as citizens, get to say, yeah, I want an RV park in my neighborhood? That'd be wonderful. Or, you know, or I hate that idea, it sucks, you know? I mean, give us a chance to say something about it. I mean, it's great you guys are gonna put in a park. I mean, I'm fiscally conservative, and I don't like the fact that there's a perfectly good park. I see hundreds of kids play back there, right in back of my house. I see them play there all the time. They're having a grand time. I mean, and so I don't get why we're spending $50,000 to move the park. I mean, I get it, there's property. I get it, we have a piece of property, we can't develop it, so we have to have something to do with it. So I get it, and you know, all that. But I just basically just want to voice my opinion and let you know that there's a lot of citizens concerned. We don't even get to say what the park looks like, what's going to be there. I mean, it's $1 million piece of property. And not only just $1 million piece of property, but they're completely transforming everything that's behind our house too. You know, I mean, hundreds of people are going to these beaches now, crowding them, trash everywhere. The bathrooms look like crap, and you're talking about putting porta-johns out there. That's really going to help our property values there. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Thank you for your time. I don't want to look like I'm just a town complainer, because I mean, I do appreciate everything you're all doing. I appreciate the trash people coming and cleaning up after all these slobs that come into town. I mean, I appreciate the work you all are doing. I just want you to understand that the citizens want a say. And I think we're owed that. I mean, yes, we voted for you all to represent us, but surely you can give us a say. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just want to clarify that that's why it's going to the planning commission, and that they will hold a public hearing so that you can discuss all of those things at the planning commission. That's part of what that process is.
Kathy Bachman?
Hi, Kathy Bachman, in the summertime, 1501 Augustine Lane. And I really was coming today not to talk about Eleanor Park, but you know, my passion for 35 years of my life, so since I was 5, no, just kidding, has been tourism. And I've been active in tourism here, and you know, big kudos to where we've come. Maggie's done a great job, and Susan French really has done a good job putting us on the map. So, but I look at it, and I came back in May, you know, after having nothing but cancellations at the Beachcomber Cottages come March. You know, they just closed down, if you will. And once we got into phase 3, the phones rang off the hook. We're busy, busier than we've ever been. We're going into September. That's tourism. Those people are spending money in this town. And then I got excited because I saw the lines going in, and we're going to get parking revenue. And Quinn and I have talked in the past, if you're going to have visitors, tourism requires money to be left in our town. But since the lines went in, I haven't seen any way to collect money. And I know we're buying meters, but buying meters and losing a whole season of revenue is poor management. You know, and we're talking about wanting to go into now managing an RV park. You can't even manage the parking. So, you know, I look at this and I love this town. And, you know, nothing broke my heart more than when I saw the message to please not come home, you know, to a town that I have a lot of property and a lot of investment in. During COVID, we stayed away, and when we came back, when our lease was up, we quarantined. But as I walk through and I see, just like the gentleman said, the invasion that has come into our town and isn't leaving money, but leaving trash, and how we are not managing it. You know, and I hear of people jumping off this and people driving their cars in, and I see the trash every day when I go walking. And it's our town, it's our tax money, and we have to take care of it. And I know, and it was nice to hear that all of you said that. It was also nice to hear that we've got a little more money in our pockets, some you know, maybe you don't care about all the parking revenue you're leaving left, but it bothers the bejeebus out of me. Every day I see people park for free and walk over to utilize the beach and leave their trash. So now I look and I see we want to put an RV park on $1 million piece of property. in a residential community, and I'm thinking, are you kidding me? And it's not just because it's in front of me. I think the roads barely support a golf cart down there, let alone one of these big vehicles. And again, we can't manage empty parking spaces. What are we going to do with people who want to live down there on a weekend? What about the residential real estate that surrounds that? So that's my 2 cents. On a tourism note, we are postponing the Northern Neck Beach Music Festival. We hadn't announced that yet, but we will be announcing new dates soon.
So
Thank you.
I take it your preference is to leave it green space?
No, I think we need to we need to activate that park?
Right.
You know, I'd like to see a good citizen input plan with some people. No, I don't think that park should just be sitting there green. I think that's not the best use of it, to be honest. It's pretty. But it is a big, valuable piece of land that we should be able to enjoy as a community. You know, RV Park, I haven't seen all the performance. I try to follow this town all the time. I've got a big investment here with multiple properties, not all down and across from Eleanor Park. But I also think a new phenomenon that's happening in this town is...
But you do have property across from Eleanor Park.
Yes, I do. And I never make that a secret. But I didn't come here today to talk about that. I really came here to talk about how frustrated I am to see the invasion coming in and we're not getting money from them. And, you know, Public Works does a great job cleaning up.
The meters could work better, actually. And I understand we don't have meters out here, but we're 12 weeks out. We can't make meters ourselves. And we talked about potentially hiring people to try to capture each person that pulls up and make them pay, or setting up somebody out there with an umbrella over their head and say, walk down to the umbrella and pay. We just decided that because this is new to us, having Washington Avenue completely full every day and that portion of Colonial Avenue full every day, but we did mark the lines in so people would park without blocking people's driveways. Yep. And we ordered $128,000 in new parking machines, which we just can't make ourselves. Unfortunately, we don't have that capability in house. But they're ordered; they'll be here as soon as they get here. Okay. They were procured. Quinn.
Yeah, and as the town grows, you will go through growing pains. But just to reassure you that what we projected for the year, for the fiscal year that we're in now for parking, we met in the first month.
Good. But, you see the invasion and the poor guys having to clean up after it every day.
Yeah, and these are kind of, or at least staff looks at it as, yes, it is more work, but that also lets us know that money is coming into the town, and not just to the town coffers. Also, you see it in your rentals. It's becoming more active, and it's also been able to spawn some high-level development opportunities that you're probably going to see flesh itself out over the course of 10 weeks.
Well, you also see it in the real estate sales.
Right. So these are good problems to have.
Mm-hmm. No, we're in a good time.
We're in good times. I'm excited. I don't want to get overly excited about that, but to be able to hit the fiscal year mark for parking revenue in the very first month during a pandemic.
We are busy.
Yes,
we were expecting it, and I think that the staff, the administration, and the staff has done an absolutely phenomenal job. We're doing trash pickups sometimes 3 times a day.
Oh, it is amazing to see the work.
These guys are working their tails off. Guys and gals, guys is gender neutral, but they're working their tails off, and they're doing a phenomenal job. Like I said, we had the folks here from Alexandria that run the Clean Water Conservatory or whatever it is. And when we bought the trash bags back to them, they were like, this is incredible. Because when they go to Alexandria and those places and they clean up there in those different bays, they're just, they have tires and they can't even, they have trash trucks full of this stuff. But these folks that work for Rob have done a tremendous job. And the community is part of that too. The community, I see the community out there on a regular basis picking up stuff, tidying things up. And that's what it's going to take until we can get a handle. We don't know if this is going to last forever. We don't know this is the new norm for the town of Colonial Beach. We have had the beach ambassadors were asked to ask questions of the new people we see in town, and one of them was, how did you hear about us? And and a lot of people said, we've never heard about Colonial Beach till now. We've come here, but we're planning on coming back. So with that, maybe you'll get, I don't know, if you rough estimate, 25% of these people will always come back on top of what we always had. So, but we will have parking meters out here. I fully expect that they will pay for themselves. Probably, if it's like this, for sure in the first year. without any hesitation, and, you know, from there, I don't know where we're gonna go, but we have problems that are generated from a virus that none of us ever expected or could have ever expected, and it's a new normal, and, you know, we're trying to navigate through it as best we can. So it's tough on everyone, I promise you, and it's very frustrating. The fact is, we all live here, so we're here full-time, this is not new to us. We completely see it, we drive the same streets, we eat the same restaurants, we see the same trash, and we go to the same, have to use the same public bathrooms when we have to use them. And yes, we have needs, and we're gonna get better at what we do, but it's gonna take time, it's gonna take, like we talked about tonight earlier, trying to find people who are willing to work is a big, big problem, and it's gonna take money. So, in all three of those things, when they come together and we can get a handle on what we have and how to better process these groups and amounts of people coming to town, hopefully we'll get a lot better at it. So, right now, it's growing pains, as they say. So, that's the way I see it. I mean, you know, I follow it every day. Believe me, I feel personally responsible for it at some level every day that goes on, and I think this whole council does, and the staff does, and the administration does, and everybody sitting up here does, and it's been an eye opener. I've been here, coming here my whole life. I've never seen it since the '60s, and even then, I don't remember it being this crowded. The beaches being this crowded. So you see pictures of it, but you know, it's crazy. I think we were much more prepared then for it. We had lifeguards on the beach. We had swimming areas that kept the sea nettles out on the beach. We had diving platforms where you could dive out there, you know.
But the people also were staying in the houses and the hotels, not driving in for the day and leaving.
Yeah, correct.
That's the
right.
biggest
Yeah.
difference.
That's huge difference. And you know, we can't pick and choose the people who come here. We can't do that. So if you remember, I got hung by the barnyard, in the barnyard I should say, for raising the parking revenue twice what it was, from $1 to $2. And people said nobody will come. Well, you know, I mean, obviously, not only do they come, but they come in droves, and they don't mind paying $20 a park all day at one beachfront. So, which I fully understand. It's a cheap day at the beach. So, anyway.
Mr. Mayor, if I may?
Yeah.
And I just wanted to also share with you, because I know that you're coming and going quite a bit. I hope you can make it to next Wednesday's council meeting, because I think you're going to have a presentation that's going to be given that's really going to show the fruits of the activity that we all had to endure as citizens. And I think you're going to see some goodness in that. So hopefully...
I haven't left the beach since I got here in May.
Well, I hope to see you next Wednesday, because I think we're going to have a presentation that's really going to make us all feel good about the direction our local economy is probably going to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Jim Green? I think they left, didn't they leave? Lynn? Did she leave with him? Okay. Sherry Hutchins?
Hi, Sherry Hutchins, Lossing. My concern again is why do we need another green space? Why do we need another playground on the point? What is wrong with Castlewood? Why don't we invest some money into that? We have the parking, we have the bathrooms. You want to spend all this money on a piece of property that's zoned residential, which means you're going to have to change it to put the playground in. And if you just let someone build homes there with the stipulation they have to provide a playground, fine and great. But you want to spend all this money. We don't have that many children on this side of the beach. Why not build a playground over on the other side where most of the kids are, on the numbered streets, in the meadows? What do they have to play on? And they don't walk all the way over here to play on this playground. So I just don't understand it at this point in time. I'd rather it be turned back to the trailer park it used to be. At least we had revenue coming in then. We have nothing, and we're spending more money. I keep hearing about more money. Oh, we're going to buy cameras, $14,000 a year to monitor them. But this is just getting out of hand, I think, at this point in time. Just let them build houses with a stipulation of a park, a playground. Put Castlewood back. Let's just think before we react, which seems to be something you all do without considering what we feel. If need be, put it on the ballot. Let us vote what's going to happen with Elmer Park.
Cheryl and Thomas.
Hello, I'm Cheryl Atherson on Monroe Bay Avenue. And this is the first time I've participated in a meeting like this. And I found it quite enlightening. My main concern right now is the Eleanor Park situation. I think it would be just fine to leave it like it is. Take that money, fix Castlewood, and as far as an RV park on that open property for Eleanor Park, I think that's just a really bad choice. I think it will lower our property values. You're going to have traffic that you cannot manage. You're going to have an RV park. I don't know how you're going to manage that. And why can't we just have some nice green space? And if we really must do something with it, let's develop it. Get all that money for the property, get all that money for the houses that get built on there, and then you've got a continuous tax revenue from nice waterfront homes. And it increases the property value of all the other waterfront homes that are there. Thank you.
Dr. Sullivan?
I'm Karen Self-Sullivan. I live at 2010 Beach Avenue on the other side of town. I've been following the Eleanor Park issue, and pretty much everybody here knows that I've been a proponent of keeping as much open green space as we can in this town, because overall that increases the quality of life for all of our residents. Eleanor Park is a perfect place. It's probably the prettiest venue that we have. And it's an opportunity. We've had an opportunity to sell it. We've had several offers come in, somewhere in the neighborhood of $800,000, and then the developers have backed out for one reason or the other. The last one, I believe, was because when they looked at the infrastructure needs, they didn't see it as being profitable. So certainly the idea of RVs coming in and coming down those main streets during peak season is, it just makes no sense whatsoever. If you remember when we had the garden tour here a couple of years ago, we couldn't get those buses down the streets. People ended up having to walk to some of those houses because we couldn't get the buses down. So the idea of having big RVs come in and leave during the peak season and on the peak days when we have all that traffic makes no sense at all. Just because it's open green space doesn't mean that it can't be income producing. We have talked about using it as very high-end venues and renting it out with nice facilities like gazebos and good planting, and a place where a lot of our older residents that are here through retirement can use. We played croquet there all year last year. We would have played it here this year if it hadn't been for COVID. There are opportunities for exercise equipment being put there, for just a simple walking trail, bird watching. All of those things add an incredible amount of value to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Kennedy?
First of all, I want to apologize for my outbreak. That was uncalled for. It's not like me, you know that. Second of all, I'm totally against an RV park. I've said it from the beginning. It's not that I'm against RVs. My brother has one down in Florida. He's in a nice park, that a park that's set up to accept those things. Our infrastructure is not designed. It was designed 100 years ago. The streets are only a street and a half wide at best down that area. You park a couple cars down the street and nobody's getting through. Now we deal with it now. I live on Boundary Street, and if you park on both sides of the street, somebody's got to wait if they meet in the middle of that street. And I can't imagine the number of RVs that you're talking about. It's just not going to be a workable situation in the way the roads are designed here. Even the interior roads, you're talking about Marshall and Bancroft and Lawson, they're barely a lane and a half wide now. I just don't see how this is a workable thing. I make no qualms about it. You know where I stand on the green space. I'm the head of CB Green Space. I want to see it stay that way, but a workable thing where revenue can be brought in by events and everything else. So I hope you take that into consideration. The infrastructure is the biggest issue. You're just not going to be able to get those things up and down the street. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Montalvo?
Hi, Dr. Lisa Montalvo, 1519 Irving. So I'm very close to the park. Yesterday, the neighbors called me to action. I was in the beach and Jimmy came running, hey, tomorrow you have to be there. So I called a lawyer, called an engineer, and I started crunching numbers. Sorry, I don't have all the numbers for you guys, but I did some numbers. First thing is, does this make sense? I am a doctor of business. Major investment for the federal government, that's my seat. The first thing is, does this make sense? I went to the literature review, and I found one that did this for me. They did a meta study in August 2016, so which is pretty much recent. And just a park similar to ours, just for being ugly, you know, not beautiful, ugly, trash, and not being a kid, will reduce the value by 13.2. Make it that of the properties near the area. Make it that a trailer park, it goes between 25 and 35% decrease in the property values. And if you all think that it doesn't affect you, the range is 3 miles. So I was wondering, what is 3 miles in Colonial Beach? Well, people, listen to this. It's from Roger Creek, which is at the entrance of Colonial Beach, to High Tykes, from the Potomac to the entrance of Monroe Bay. That's 3 miles. The most affected houses are the close to the park. And what happens is those houses are part of the most expensive houses that you have in Colonial Beach. Those houses will depreciate a lot. And then those houses serve as comparables to other houses. That's why the prices of houses is increasing in Colonial Beach and it's being maintained. Every time that you sell a house, other houses keep on increasing. While those houses are going down, and if those houses are going down, all your houses are going down. And you know what? A lot of you will be underwater because I did some estimates, that's what I do, and the prices, using 13.2% of decrease, which is the most conservative, the prices will be at the prices of 2010. And if you like the prices of 2010, that's what you get. I am then decided, well, does this make sense to the county? Well, the town, maybe they see something I don't see. So I went and did some tax revenue numbers. I found out that we are taxed at 5.75%. I used the internet, I didn't look at the paperwork, and I actually did only for the houses in the point. And I averaged those houses at 300,000. Why 300,000? Because there are houses more expensive than others, correct? And I said, well, let's do it 300,000. I think that's fair. Well, good news. You only lose $294,000 per year at that rate. It can be more, but it's $294 less that is going to your treasury. That's passive income that is you're receiving right now. And that doesn't count when the property values start going down, all the income that you will be losing from everywhere else. That's only from the point. Now you have other consideration. I said, well, this is, maybe they can do this. What do we need to do? Well, I went to the, I was pointed that section C2 of the Westmoreland Code requires 5 acres devoted to this type of park, at the regulation here, 5 acres. That park does not have 5 acres. And then I asked him more or less 3 acres because the estimate that they gave me was 3.5 acres. But then you need to factor in the playground, which is something somebody here mentioned, which is totally true. So you really will not be able to do it. But let's say that the county decide, oh, I love Colonial Beach, let's go for it. So you will need to do a rezoning. So the rezoning will require a joint public hearing, which is what you all were mentioning. And in that rezoning, the ground for that and the Linus test is how you obtain the land. And my members in Eleanor Park pointed out that the land was donated with a specific clause for the use of Colonial Beach residents and enjoyment of all Colonial Beach residents. So I went and said, well, how many Colonial Beach residents has a trailer? Less than 1%. So on those grounds, I don't think that you have grounds to have a trailer park because you're building a park for outsiders, not for insiders. Now, let's say that we overcome all that. But we are good, yeah, we're going there. I lied to you in everything. And you overcame everything. You have severe cost of infrastructure there.
Right.
So your cost of infrastructure exceed 500K. So Virginia Code 10.1 1188.
Dr. Mavaldo, your time is up. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get 3 minutes, but listen, that's a credible amount of research. Have you done it on the flip side to see what the value would do to homes if they built homes on the property there?
No, but I can do it, and I would gladly do that. And the type of development and all that kind of stuff, I can do that for you. Another investment, we can actually run metrics of any type of investment and determine what is the best for the area. So you don't need to be married to anything. Let's make something that makes sense.
Dr. Sullivan raised a good point. This has been an issue for at least 6 to 8 years, longer than that, 20. At one time, there were 33 permanent trailer homes in there that started out as weekend homes only. You could only stay in the homes from April to October, then you had to vacate and come back, and then it became a full-time trailer park. And what was being considered here, or at least discussed tonight, is not even a trailer park. It's the motor home kind of thing, temporary. Yes. 14 days maximum stay. You have to leave, and then that kind of thing for 6 months a year. And we figured you could generate up to $200,000 a year, but I don't know what it would do to the price of homes. I thank you for doing that research, and I'm sure the Planning Commission would love to see that as well. On the flip side of that, if you feel so emboldened, if you could do the flip side to see what would happen if you built 10 $500,000 homes, what would the property values would do? Because another thing, Dr. Sullivan, you mentioned 800,000. It was actually the first legitimate one we had was $1.2 million, and then it was 900,000, and then they ended up with a third offer of 800,000. So we've been on that whole spectrum of that as well. The holdup has been as far as the builders or purchasers, developers, they just didn't want to go through the fight. They didn't feel like the fight was going to be a fair fight when you talked to them. That's what they said specifically to us at the council at the time. They didn't want to go through the fight with the Bay Act and the different things. They just didn't think the town was going to be supportive of it. And I actually agree with them that the town was not going to be supportive. of building homes there. So I understand why they backed out of those deals as well. And there were some other issues along the way, but.
And also I would like to offer, do an enhanced use list. I created a lot of these arrangements for the federal government is that the town retains the land. Developers come, develop the land for whatever use we want, for example, houses. And the town continue, they own the houses, they sell the houses, whatever. The land remains with the town can actually get revenue for that, and after a certain time, the land reverts to the town.
So just to be clear though, this council right here has all agreed that the one thing we'd like to see is some kind of revenue driven from that property, okay? Because prior to that, when it had the 33 trailer homes on it, it generated, I don't even remember, was it $180,000 a year or something like that, whatever it was, multiple years out, okay? And now that it's an empty space, then it's not an asset anymore, it's a liability because it's an empty space, okay? So it's not generating any revenue. But if there are alternatives to generate revenue, which I've heard tonight about high-end, maybe I guess weddings or pavilions and things like that, then that is also something that should be looked at for sure. But just to try and give you a little history of how we got to where we are tonight. So that's how
and look, if anybody posts ideas in the Facebook page for Eleanor Park, we can actually do calculations, and then maybe it's not one idea, maybe it's multiple ideas. What would make sense? Maybe there can be a lot of ideas that combine make sense for that park.
But we do also know, for whoever spoke about it, that we have to get some parks on the north end of town. The majority of the kids up there's no parks. None at all. You've got a lot of parks down here, a lot of green space down here, and we have nothing up there. So I can just tell you, I see all the kids, and that's where the buses come, and the whole 9 yards. I know Pat can vouch for that as well. So anyway, okay, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for doing the diligence to look into this. Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Michael Fitzpatrick, 401 Word Street. I think tonight's been really an eye-opening experience for a lot of us, and I think what I've been saying in social media over the last couple of weeks or so is I am not against green space. I am not against the playground. What I'm against is what we've heard tonight is there's a lot of unheard voices and there's a lot of other ideas out there. My concern is that we're rushing into something without fully vetting what the options are. The town is changing dramatically as we speak. As our town manager mentioned, we're going to hear about something pretty dramatic next week potentially. And I think Eleanor Park and a lot of these properties that the town owns all play into what the future development plans for this town are. And I think that has got to be taken into consideration. My concern with moving forward with jumping right into putting a playground there is it ties up that space and prevents potentially what could be a more lucrative development opportunity for that property as things progress. And so my recommendation to the council is pause for a minute here. Let's hear what's going to happen next week with this development. Let's see where that all fits together. Let's engage the planning commission. Let's really look at what the options are up to and including rezoning that land if that's what has to happen for what makes sense for the support of the strategic plan going forward. And I personally, it's not that I'm against the playground. I'm concerned about the safety there. That corner coming around at the point there is dangerous enough now. Walking around the point every morning like I do, going in a counterclockwise direction, cars are coming by, and who are going to be the people going to that playground? It's people on the beach down there. They're going to be walking down to that park for the most part. And I'm honest to God concerned about kids walking along Irving Avenue there with the increase in traffic that we've seen in this town. And it's not just about having a playground for them, but we don't want somebody run over down there. And I just think we need to look through this thing, really think about it very carefully before we jump into something that could end up tying that land up and making a mistake that we have to then undo. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Walter?
I'm going to be talking about another subject. I ride around on my golf cart every day. When I come around on Colonial Avenue, the first thing I see, "Welcome to Colonial Beach," on that sign. And the next thing I see, "Parking is enforced." I'm going to ask the chief a question. How many tickets have been written in this town? Now, I'm not going to ask him. He can answer that later. The parking meter at the end of the sidewalk is number 4. That's been broken for 5 weeks. It's just been fixed. And I'll go by on my golf cart 5 times every morning, and they will count it up, number 4 parking space meter. Just past Monday, and I went around and asked why, and they said a wire was broken, and they had to order a new wiring harness. And
True.
so
True.
yeah, they had problems on the lower part of the beach. They got alcohol on the beach. I seen it. I ride on my golf cart. I won't leave here, and I ride the port at nighttime. They got people sleeping on the beach at nighttime at 1 o'clock in the morning. And so, you know, something has to be done about that. We got people cooking on the beach. That's not allowed. And, you know, I'm one of those people, I know more about Colonial Beach than the average person. I will let the mayor and the council know I am Colonial Beach. That's my conversation for tonight. So,
Thank you, Walter.
I thank you.
Okay, Council,
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adjourn.
is there a second?
All in favor?
Aye. Meeting's adjourned, thank you.
Yeah.